Vladimir Putin's recent interview with Russian journalist Dmitry Kiselev provoked the expected reaction in the West. For example, British newspapers have found nothing better than to start scaring the citizens of Foggy Albion with their articles that Russia is allegedly preparing to launch a nuclear strike against the West. US journalists also decided to keep up with their British counterparts. In particular, they have begun to frighten US citizens with statements that Putin had made it clear to the West that Russia is ready to use nuclear weapons at any moment. The only representatives of the Western media who decided to soberly evaluate Putin's words and not develop propaganda slogans regarding nuclear war were the journalists of the Bloomberg agency. In particular, they said that Putin made it clear, with his words, that Russia demands security guarantees from the West, and only after Moscow receives them, Russia would sit down at the negotiating table, which will eventually end the war and bring long-awaited peace in Ukraine. My friends, let me remind you that on March 13, Russian President Vladimir Putin gave a frank interview to the journalist Dmitry Kiselev, where he touched on many topics, including the accession of Finland and Sweden to NATO, and the provocative statements of French President Emmanuel Macron. In particular, Vladimir Putin said that Russia would never use nuclear weapons against Ukraine. At the moment, all our missiles are in full combat readiness. However, we do not intend to use these missiles against Ukraine, Vladimir Putin said. Putin also noted that Russia's nuclear triad is the world's most modern and powerful. In this world, only Russia and the United States have a nuclear triad. However, US nuclear missiles are significantly inferior in quality and power to Russian ones. And in Washington, they know it perfectly well, Vladimir Putin said. The Russian president also commented on the statements of French President Emmanuel Macron regarding his promise to send the French army to help the Kiev regime. According to Vladimir Putin, Emmanuel Macron makes such statements because he failed in Africa. Putin noted that the French president is very offended, and that he is painfully experiencing the failures of France on the African continent, where Moscow has significantly increased its influence, while Paris is being expelled from all African countries. As for the accession of Sweden and Finland to NATO, President Putin said that it was an absolutely senseless decision by the authorities of these countries, and that this decision would not bring any benefit to the citizens of these countries. Our missiles were never aimed at Finland, and our troops were not stationed at the borders of this country. Now everything has changed. They received both missiles and troops near their own borders, Putin said. Commenting on Putin's interview, an authoritative political scientist, military expert, and director of the International Institute of Political Expertise, Yevgeny Minchenko, said that with this interview, Putin warned the West and at the same time made it clear to it that Russia is ready to start negotiations and put an end to the current conflict. According to him, Putin understands perfectly well that Russian troops fully own the initiative on the battlefield and that this factor gives Moscow the necessary levers, so that future negotiations do not turn into a respite for the armed forces of Ukraine with the subsequent resumption of attacks on the positions of Russian troops. Yevgeny Minchenko noted that Putin is seeking a final and lasting peace in Ukraine, and that he will force the West to accept all Moscow's conditions. According to him, NATO's nuclear forces are very inferior to Russian ones, and it's precisely this fact that will force the West to accept its defeat. Meanwhile, details of the Russian missile attack on Odessa, which took place on the night of March 11, have emerged. As it turned out, as a result of a massive missile attack, during which dozens of drones and about 5 ballistic missiles were used, the secret training ground of the National Guard of Ukraine in the village of Paliyivka, located 40 kilometers north of Odessa, was completely destroyed. As it turned out, at this training ground, the British military trained combat swimmers of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine to commit sabotage on the territory of Crimea and in the area of the Crimean Bridge. It is reported that as a result of the missile strike, not only the training ground itself was destroyed but also 2 barracks, where dozens of Ukrainian and British military personnel were located. Commenting on this missile attack, the head of the press center of the Group of the Armed Forces of Ukraine under the designation South, Natalia Gumanyuk, said that Russian missiles and drones began striking Odessa at a very precise and right time. According to her, it seems that the Russians know in advance when and where to strike. At the same time, the mayor of Odessa, Gennady Trukhanov, bluntly stated that this city is literally teeming with the so-called Ukrainian guerrillas, who in every possible way help the Russian army to hit targets in the territory of the Odessa region and arrange sabotage at military facilities. According to him, there are a lot of Ukrainian citizens in Odessa who are looking forward to the arrival of the Russian army. Against this background, many Ukrainian telegram channels, citing their own sources in the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, said that Russian missiles and drones hit a secret base in the north of Odessa precisely on the tip of Ukrainian partisans, and called on the head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, to begin large-scale detentions of all residents of the Odessa region who are seen to sympathize with Russia.